Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. The second meeting of August, regular city council meeting on 2023. Would you please stand? Is there an invocation person here today? If you stand for the invocation and remain for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for offering for me to do this. My name is Daniel Hoffman. I'm the children's minister at Holy Ghost. I was told not to prepare a sermon, just a prayer. So, will you bow your heads with me, please? Dear Jesus, we thank you so much for this new day. We thank you for this new school year that our teachers and our students have just started. We ask that you cover them in peace and comfort and passion as they begin this new school year. I also thank you for all of these public officials here who have given up their time and their lives to lead our wonderful town of Fredericksburg. Bless their words and actions today as they continue to lead. Please bring us rain. Please bring us cooler weather and help us to all to be and make disciples. In your name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you very much. Do we have any ceremonial matters, proclamations today? Employee recognitions?
Nothing this morning, Mayor. Thank you.
Well, we recognize all our good employees. Yes. Council comments.
I'll just throw out real quickly. I had a chance to attend the Global Leadership Network here recently, and just wanted to acknowledge it was just a really great event. Many amazing speakers presented virtually. Condoleezza Rice, I thought personally was amazing. But just wanted to thank Pastor Bobby, Holy Ghost for hosting, and also FISD for hosting us in their facility, and Dr. Joe, thank you all for doing that.
I second that. I was unable to attend in person, but I did receive the email to watch it online and support it, and was grateful for the opportunity, and also thank Bobby and Holy Ghost.
I was there too, and it was awesome.
You and Mayley went as well, right?
Yeah, I was there.
Did you go?
I did not.
Okay.
We've been busy with a lot of meetings all over the place, so I apologize if I'm a little jumbled, but we've met with the county commissioners last week. We've had our own share of workshops, so thank you to department heads and all the staff for all the many hours y'all are spending on budgets. Krista's daily life. Thank you.
And we have our second charter review committee meeting Thursday. The first meeting was just to basically introduce each other and talk about the format. This meeting will get into the charter and start talking about the bones of it, and so we'll see how it comes out. Looking forward to it.
We just, if you've not, and you probably have noticed on Market Square, that the project's moved along well. Looks like it's about coming to completion, and they're on track. And I think we're talking, Andrea's not here. I don't know if you have any, but I think October we're probably should be open.
We'll still have to get furniture in the church, so probably be a rental facility the first part of next year.
Okay, thank you.
Andrea will be here. I know she has an item on the agenda. Any other comments? All right, item 6 is a consent agenda. It is 4 minutes of meetings that we've had lately, August 7th, August 1st, July 26th, and July 24th. Considering the approval of a street closure for the Best Fest, which is in October. And that's that one lane on, is it Adams? Yeah. And then considering the approval of a partial release of an easement of a tract from the blanket access easement for existing drainage and utility easement for Viola Holman. Council, do you want to pull any of these or vote them together?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion second to approve these as presented in the consent agenda item. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 7, ordinances, resolutions, and public hearings. The first is considering a request by Jesse Durden for a conditional use permit for condominium use for property located at 591 Friendship. First, we'll have a presentation by the applicant. Is that the way you want to handle it, Anna? Okay. Jesse?
Morning, Mayor, Council. Thanks for having me here this morning. I'm excited to talk to you about a project. It's a non-short-term rental project that we're working on and would love your support. It's a 22-unit residential condominium project on Friendship Lane. It's on roughly 3 acres. The project will provide what's essentially single-family housing on an average of about 1,000 square feet per unit. Which will put us in a price point between $300,000 and $350,000, which is a price point that's unheard of right now in the market. I think Melissa Stout will speak to that here in a moment and tell you what's available on the market that's comparable to this property. But we have heard the need for housing for first responders, teachers, nurses, staff, folks that that $300,000 to $350,000 price point works for them, and we want to respond to that need through this project. There is obviously and has been concern regarding short-term rentals in the Fredericksburg market for some time. You have taken action previously to kind of bolster the requirements and approvals required for short-term rentals. We are not, it's my understanding that if we needed or if we wanted short-term rentals, we would have to come to you now for that, along with this condo application. We are not coming and asking for short-term rental permits. Only condo, single-family type condos. In addition, to kind of bolster that commitment to you on our concept plan, we've added a note that says short-term rentals are prohibited on this project. The third layer of that will be once we get the condominium association in place, we will restrict against that, as well as limit the ownership of these condos to maximum of 2 per person. That helps us on a number of things, but it helps us kind of push the home ownership side and ensure that the condominium association is not just a complete rental community. I'm personally invested in the project. It's named after my grandmother, Alora May Hahn. She grew up in this area and in the Doss area. My grandfather was a graduate of here in the 40s, and I guess subsequently moved to Comfort where I was raised, and so this is a good chance for me to come back and honor her through a really thoughtful project. We have hired local designers to make the project special. We like to add character in all the ways that we can to our project. So Shayna is working with us on the exterior facades and the floor plans, which are pretty well progressed at this point. The project centers around a common area green space, which we think is one of the major benefits of a project of this nature. So we're able to kind of encourage that sense of community, sense of neighborhood amongst the folks that own those properties and live there. I have a couple other folks that would like to speak on our behalf, and then when they're done, then I'm happy to answer questions.
All right.
Melissa?
Good morning. I'm Melissa Stout. I work with, I'm a realtor here with Riata Ranch Realty. I've been working with Jesse on this project for the last few months. He and I went to college together. We were Aggies 20 years ago. So he came to me, a couple of years ago, just wanting to kind of find something to do here in Fredericksburg. And so, from the get-go, he's been, really careful and intent about what is a community need, and this is it. I think we all know there's been developers and projects that have tried to come in here and hit this price point, and they've not been able to do so. The fact that not only is he not pursuing short-term rentals, but he's restricting against them, speaks a lot to his intent to kind of provide something that we know is missing. And my world is real estate now, and so like we're in a market right now where we do have a lot of more inventory available. And if I had someone come to me, looking in that 300 to 350 price point, as of this morning, there's one active listing. It's a home that was built in 1950, and it reflects that. So there is this shortage, and I support what he's doing. I think it's going to be a good project. I stand behind it.
Thank you.
Shay Abbott, who works for Kev, he's the construction VP.
Shay, what's your role?
I am Vice President of Construction with Kev Classic Homes. We're the builder. Thank y'all for having us this morning. My name is Shay Abbott. I live in Grimes County near College Station. I did not grow up in Fredericksburg, but I played just about every summer. I played tennis with Coach King out on the tennis court. So big fan of your city and the folks in it. Jesse spoke before on we feel that there's a role or a need for some affordable housing for a specific population in the community. And both Jesse, Shayna Thompson, our designer, Melissa, Chase Warner, who's our construction superintendent, building houses in Kerrville right now, all are deeply rooted in this region and have friends and family that are in and around the area, all of whom express the need for affordable options for teachers, first responders, and young families in this area. So we have put our heads together and have come up with a product that we feel is a good mix of functionality, aesthetic appeal, and affordability. Our mission is to provide a quality house that will benefit these hardworking individuals that we've stated. As Jesse said, we would like to express local values, family values with this community. He talked a little bit about the green space, an area that we hope people can become neighbors. Neighbors can become lifelong friends. I think one of our primary objectives for this community is to make sure that this housing remains accessible for members of this community instead of outside investors. That's why we're pursuing condominium types so that we can limit somebody from coming in and purchasing more than 2 of these units just to rent them out or make a quick buck. I would say that our goal is that this would be a lifelong community of local community members who can be proud of these houses for generations. So thank you for your time. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
That's all we've got for you. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
So I love the messaging in the target market, and maybe this is more of a question to Melissa. Is having looked at the market myself, and I'm not a realtor, so I may ask some novice questions here, but how do you protect it from the open MLS market? So the intention is affordable, attainable housing for teachers, police, fire. I heard that, which is awesome. We need this desperately.
Yeah.
But how do you protect that in the future from an outside investor who wants a second home? Is there a way that we can differentiate? And I think I know the answer, but I'll just ask the question.
I think you get into, like, from a realtor perspective, we can't tell someone they can't buy it. It's ethical kind of stuff.
Right.
But to me, there's similar projects, along Highway, along Friendship, where they've had it's this kind of condo product, but it's they all had short-term rental permits in place, and they were gone. And I don't know who the buyers were, but my suspicion is they were outside investors. I don't think we'll have that kind of want from an outside investor when they know they can't do a short-term rental. So I think that'll kind of damper it down a little bit and just essentially make the availability for just give more local people a chance to get into something at this price point. Because I think this price point with the short-term rental permit has gone to investors. That's just what I see. So I think, you get into ethical stuff by telling, well, you can't buy it, you can't say that, but I think we just have to kind of target a specific buyer in the ways that we're doing it. And that's kind of my feedback.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
I'd add on to that, and I haven't told Melissa about this yet, but one of my ideas is to kind of open up to the local market first before we post, big publications, announcements of the project, is to make sure that the word is spread throughout the community. And we'd love all of your help in doing that with folks that that are looking for this type of housing, that first shot.
Jesse, I really like what y'all have done. I love the design, and I want to see more of this around town where we have, yes, smaller size lots, smaller square footage, but there's a beautiful, common area. It's not so car centric. You've got, the car parking is in the back besides, the visitor parking. I think that that's important, and I love the opportunity for people to have a path to ownership, so it's not just another apartment complex. So thank you for your intentionality there.
Well, we're going to have a public hearing on this. So if you wouldn't mind, Anna, you want to lay the groundwork?
Sure, just to summarize. So this is on Friendship Lane. It is a conditional use permit. It does have R2 zoning, but the R2 zoning does require a conditional use permit for a condominium use. As he stated, an STR condominium use right now is a separate use and a separate request and not part of this consideration. So the site area is about 3.25 acres, and we run the reports for the site coverage on impervious coverage, building coverage, height, and parking, and this site meets all those requirements. Other requirements will be landscaping and detention and utilities, and those will go through the normal processes. So this was first presented to P&Z, and there was confusion about the location of it and the need for platting. So they actually moved the location to the west on this lot, and became very clear that they were not going to go for the STR use, which was also a concern. So they addressed that concern, and they are going through the platting process. So there will be two lots out of this larger area. Let's see, following along now, you can see my screen. So one of the comments that came up, one of the conditions that staff is requesting is a sidewalk along Friendship Lane. As part of the Creek Street extension, a sidewalk was required on the new South Creek Street, but staff is requesting a sidewalk be installed along Friendship Lane. Lot 2 here is going to be a newly created lot out of this development, and then next to that, here on the east, will be the Seco development, which is mixed use, so there will be some retail along with the residential at Seco. So staff would like to see accessibility along Friendship that doesn't require a car to that neighboring property and development. Another issue that came up at planning and zoning was refuse location of trash receptacles, and so I put Jesse in contact with the city's sanitation department to talk to them about if the city can serve it, and if not, a private company would be able to do that. So on the site plan, the final review of the site plan, we'll look at screening. That's a common thing, requiring screening of any refuse. So if they do individual bins, or if they have a central location, we can help them get through that final site plan process, but nothing to hold up a CUP for. So planning and zoning did recommend approval with the normal conditions on landscaping. They did add parking based on some feedback from P&Z. So again, meeting all the technical site plan requirements, and staff is recommending approval.
All right, let's go to public hearing.
I move we go into public hearing.
Second.
Motion second to go from regular into public hearing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody here to speak for or against this request? Tom?
My name is Tom Musselman. I'm a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission, but I'm also a neighbor down the street of this development. I live at 904 Friendship Lane. I think this is a development that is needed in the community. I think that the STR aspect of condo-like developments is something that the city council has got to really take into consideration. I like the idea that they are restricting. They're saying that there are no STRs in there, and the reason I say this is that you've got a development that is basically the people live very close to each other all the time, and I think that it would be good public policy for the city to adopt an ordinance that prohibits condos. I mean, it prohibits STRs in condos because of space issues. And I think that's something that I would like to see the city look at. But as far as the development goes, I think it's appropriate for the area. I think that we need sidewalks on the south side of Friendship Lane, and the developer agreeing to put a sidewalk from South Creek Street to the east is, I think, very, very positive. I would hope that the city council would ask other developers that are in that part of East Friendship Lane to extend sidewalks, because everybody on Friendship Lane is going to either walk to perhaps some of the retail that goes in at Seiko, but everybody's going to be walking to Walmart, or everybody's going to be walking down to shops at Sutherland's or whatever. So if we're trying to do away with or reduce the amount of vehicular traffic, why not put some sidewalks in? And I understand the cost involved with sidewalks, but I think it's a good project, and I hope you give it its approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Anyone else? Back into regular.
I move we go back into regular.
Second.
Motion second to go back into regular session. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Mr. Durden, you are clear and agreeable to the conditions that P&Z established on this request.
Yes.
Okay. I really like this project. I really like the young, creative people coming to us and offering a solution to something we've been talking about forever. We'll take a piece of property and create housing for that purpose. Your presentation had purposefulness in it. I wish we had more of that. Let me ask you a question about STRs. I understand you're saying, and you made the point several times about not being eligible. You're going to establish a condo association of some sort, I'm assuming?
Yes.
I mean, I heard you say that. Until then, they would have to come before P&Z and ultimately the council for a CUP application, right?
If there was another owner prior to sale and prior to creation of the condo association, which there will not be.
Okay.
So,
but at some point you will establish terms for residential agreement.
yes.
That it's not eligible for STR use.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. You know, we have the same concern, I think, that a lot of you do. Not maybe we're concerned about STRs maybe differently than you are. Really, for me, it's an operational thing. You know, we really want to cater to people that live here, work here, are here every day, and I can only imagine the mess we would have if we had half the people that live here and work here and it's their home, and the other half is STRs and folks are coming in on the weekends and having parties till all hours of the night. That's not the type of community that we develop and create. So we share that same concern, want to protect our development against that and residents that will purchase in there against that.
Well, whatever we do or do not share about STRs, when we do agree that we need more housing opportunities for people in this community in that price point. Because my goal personally is home ownership and path to ownership, which creates better community. So thank you. I appreciate your hard work on this and your presentation, Melissa, and your people.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions before we?
Yeah, just, if I may.
Go ahead.
Bobby, go ahead, please.
Assuming that you have the sales, and this takes off pretty well, would you develop the same type of project on lot 2?
That's a great question. So we have intentionally left Lot 2 separate and apart from this request. As we originally looked at the project and kind of developed some parameters, I felt like 22, I keep calling it a responsible number of units that I felt like the market could absorb. I think we'll learn some things from the market during that time, whether 1,000 square feet is correct or we need 1,200 square feet, but I would say the likelihood is that we do a project very similar to this on the adjacent parcel to the east, where we would be coming back to you and asking for a CUP on that track. That's my guess. We hope that it kind of goes that direction. We hope that we hit the market, square on the head, and this is what they want. But we're going to test the waters with this.
Now, with that, would the access be off of Creek Street
That's a great question.
or lot 2?
So there are some options, and we haven't solidified anything with planning and engineering yet. There is a cross-access easement off of Friendship via the Seco track. So that's one option. There has been some discussion about a right in, right out on Friendship from our development directly onto Friendship. And then should we extend this project like I just described, the likelihood is that we would push a cross-access easement through here, through lot 1 to lot 2. So there's some options there. I think a lot of flexibility that we work with staff on, and I'm pretty sure we'll find a solution there. So
Okay. And I love the fact that you're working with the Lennar development for access to utilities and things like that. That's great. Thank you.
This is more for city staff than you're over parking, so this doesn't really apply, but just a, at our comp plan, planning session recently, we talked about a parking development.
my pleasure. Thank you.
I wanted to acknowledge that there were 10 affected property owners to this property and 7 did not send in anything. 1 was a no because they didn't want any more STRs. 1 was a no because of traffic and 1 supported. This is a question for staff. I'm just curious, when Creek Street comes through to hit Friendship on the south side, I don't want it to, does that intersection need to be reconfigured at all? Or, what's the timeline on that? Because, is Jesse going to be building a sidewalk that's going to get ripped out on the edge of it because we need to readjust things?
So this tract was included in the overall traffic impact analysis that was done for Friendship Oaks. As part of Friendship Oaks, there will be improvements made at the intersection of Creek Street and Friendship Lane, including turn lanes. But they will account for that in their site plan so that the sidewalk itself will be shifted back where it doesn't have to be rebuilt.
Thank you. Thank you for your willingness to construct a sidewalk there. One more question on the sidewalk. Will it be right up against the street like it is on the other side of Friendship, where you're battling with dually rearview mirrors, or can we get a buffer in any way?
We can coordinate with them on that. I don't think we've seen a definitive plan because this was a late addition to the overall site plan, but we can definitely request that to have some sort of buffer there.
Okay, thank you.
I like what you're doing because this is what we're talking about is affordable housing. The short-term rental stuff's going to take care of itself, and if they want, they can apply for it, but odds are they won't get it in the condominium. But I'd like to make a motion to approve this request on, I put my glasses on. Section 3-110, allow for condominium use of property located at 591 Friendship Lane.
Second. I have a motion second to approve this conditional use permit. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you.
Item 7B is to consider a request by Whitney Huffmaster Design for a CUP to allow general warehousing and distribution and light manufacturing at 977 Kerr Road. It's zoned M2 medium manufacturing. Ms. Koch?
Thank you, Mayor Hoover and the members of the City Council Board for receiving our request today. We've had an opportunity to work with our client for a little while and be able to help him develop a new business park. Our facility is located toward the edge of town on Kerr Road near Pica and Tigydale, kind of our boundary streets. He has requested or looked at utilizing this property in a manner to continue to serve a similar use that is in the area. We have other business parks and light manufacturing and facilities of that nature in and around our surrounding property, and he'd like to continue to build on that and provide additional services to the area and our community. We plan on doing this project in 2 phases. The initial phase will be 3 initial buildings. As part of that, we'll be providing for public parking as well as tenant and any kind of storage related parking. Those are going to be separated. We have public parking toward the inner loop so that all of the public uses will be, provide a nice entryway and not be kind of taking into consideration some of the loading areas and other needs for the tenants of those buildings. We, in phase 2, we're providing for 2 additional structures. Right now, we don't have any potential tenant uses at this point. He's wanting to be able to allow his opportunities to be flexible for whatever the market needs or whatever the tenant uses might be. But each building is currently planned to be a maximum of 5 tenants with the ability for a tenant to take the whole building if they want it. So again, trying to provide some flexibility for whatever the clients and tenants may need. We will have loading zones off the back of the facilities, probably a couple of overhead doors to facilitate, various types of uses and tenants that might need to go in there. We are asking for a conditional use permit today for the light manufacturing, general warehousing type of a use for the facility. So like that's, again, aligns with adjacent uses in other properties in the area, and it also provides him flexibility with the type of tenants that he may need or may desire to use this type of a facility. We have considered the site for green space as well as detention, given consideration to future parking, drive aisles, as well as the potential connection to the rear of the property, which is actually the owner's personal property as well, just as a potential option if additional thoroughfares are needed or future development on his tract might be considered at a future date. So I welcome any questions from council, but that kind of sums up our project.
Do you want to ask questions now, council, or after public hearing?
That it.
Okay. May have some questions for you in a sec.
Okay.
Okay. Anna?
Thank you, Whitney. So the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for general warehousing and distribution and light manufacturing uses on a currently vacant property. It has M2 medium manufacturing zoning. As she said, the proposed development would include 5 single-story buildings that are approximately 9,000 square feet and have 5 tenant spaces in each building. They are anticipating professional uses. However, the applicant wanted the option to make to market for general warehousing and distribution and light manufacturing. So I provided a definition on warehousing and distribution and light manufacturing to see what those types of uses are, including fabrication, assembly, treatment, and packaging, including incidental storage, sales and distribution of such products, but excluding basic industrial processing. So a typical use might be a winery, sheet metal shop, or welding or machine shop. The area in question is about 4.5 acres. We've evaluated the building coverage and impervious coverage, heights, and parking, and all of those minimums are met. They're providing for stormwater detention on site, and they'll need to meet the landscaping and screening requirements as well. P&Z recommended approval with staff's proposed conditions on August 2nd. And in reviewing the CUP requirements, there are 13 items that must be considered, and staff finds that the applicant has met or responded to all of those requirements. The requested additional uses of general warehousing and distribution and light manufacturing are in keeping with the existing uses on neighboring sites, such as Heartland Services, which is a full-service production machine shop, and Fredericksburg Cast Iron Company. In addition, the development requirements for all proposed uses have been planned and incorporated into the design, including parking and loading areas. And so staff recommends approval as presented.
Let's go to public hearing.
I move we go to public hearing.
Second.
Motion second to go out of regular and public hearing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf or in opposition to this request? Okay.
I move we go out of public hearing to regular session.
Second.
Motion second to go back into regular. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Just for the record, Ms. Koch, I know you do this for a living. The recommendations from P&Z, conditionals, accepted site plan, construction, all that stuff, you're aware of that and agree? Okay.
I do have a question on the, Whitney, on the access to the property. Is it just off of Kerr Road, as shown on the plan there? Or I think in P&Z you had said something about accessing the going to the next door's property and having an access.
Correct. Right now, we have a single entry planned off of Kerr Road.
Okay.
That will be shared by both tenants and guests. My client has requested that we have two secondary kind of exit points or entry points, but it's mainly for tenants. That would be toward the rear of the property. We do show that on the site plan. He owns the next parcel. It is also part of an M2 media manufacturing use. So it's really going to be, he kind of wants that option if he changes hands or wants to utilize his property in a different manner in the future.
Thank you.
And there were, chiming on this, there are 5 affected property owners and no one responded.
Thank you for that.
And in terms of walkability, this is not necessary for any kind of sidewalks, is it? It's pretty
Correct. Yeah. Given the location of that, I will note they did put a spot for a potential food truck so that if tenants,
we reviewed that with Kelly Alfers as well, and any requirements, if they proceed with that, will be meet all county health requirements as well. Sorry, Anna, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Anything else? All right.
I'll move to approve as presented with the recommendations from staff.
Second.
Motion and second to approve this request. Any further discussion, questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you for being
Council.
here.
Mayor. Appreciate it.
Now we're on this item 7C, consider the request by Bob Walsh and Hayden Simmons, changing land use from low density residential to commercial and change zoning from single family residential to neighborhood commercial for 2 properties located in the 500 block of West Live Oak between 528 Milam and 610 West Live Oak. Is the applicant here? Yeah.
How are y'all today?
Peachy.
Great. I like it. Peachy's better than Dad, right? I wanted to come over here real quick and show you in Q4 of last year, this property by South Island. I had come in for zoning and land use change from the entire property R1 to C1 and requested this as R2. After with or review with P&Z and the city council, it made most sense to change this to C1, keep this as R1, since this was R1 property as well. One of the drawbacks that the city had at the time was we weren't completing the city block. So we were going to change this to C1, but that left this part still as R1 residential. It really didn't make a whole lot of sense. So since that time, I've been working on finding these owners and getting them through the process to be able to complete the request. You guys were really looking for last year whenever I came to this. So that's what I'm here with today. Mr. Walsh for his property, entirely his property, changed to C1. And then Mr. Simmons, who has 3.5 acres, continuing that line right here. If that is C1, and then the remaining portion to stay as R1, single family residence, like this. And that's really what we have for you guys today.
All right. Well, we may have some questions for you in just a second. Anna?
Thank you, Adam. So as Adam said, we are considering a two-prong, a land use change and a zoning change. The land use would go from low-density residential to commercial, and the zoning from R1 to C1. As he described the background on how we got to this point, it was because a neighboring property had come in previously for the corner of Milam and Live Oak and was seeking a change to C1, which was granted. But as he highlighted, it kind of created this gap, a reverse spot zoning, if you will. And so this is kind of a cleanup to continue the C1 along this stretch of Live Oak. As he pointed out, we're not recommending approval of the C1 all the way back on the larger lot, but just to kind of create a consistent line across for the C1. And P&Z did recommend approval on August 2nd with staff's proposed conditions, and staff recommends approval of the requested change for the lot abutting 507 West Walsh, as the request is in line with the previously approved zoning to the west. For the larger parcel that extends beyond West Walsh, staff recommends matching the C1 zoning to the rear property line of 507 West Walsh, but leaving the remaining portion of the property to the north as R1. And this recommendation is in keeping with the existing development patterns, as properties abutting West Walsh are R1, single family. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Anna before we go into public hearing?
Just real quickly, when you subdivide the one lot here, is access to that back part going to be through Walsh? Is that what you just said?
This isn't really subdividing, that can come later. This is if you look at this on the screen, you can see the green kind of shows some of the floodplain. So they can come back and subdivide off of Walsh or leave it as one large parcel, kind of depending on how it is best to access it, because Walsh does dead end. But at this point, the zoning doesn't necessarily have to follow a lot line.
Okay, so it's just a clean, okay, thank you.
At some point, can the owner come back and request C1 for the whole property of the one where the larger tract?
They could, yes. I mean, they could request it. Yes. I guess we'd evaluate it then, but just kind of based on the surrounding. We've got this R1. This is R1A. This is the Harmony Post Oak Village. R1A lots that are being developed right now. This is St. Vincent's de Paul. So kind of a mix of uses, but yes, technically they could come back later.
So I get that we're trying to make this congruent, and I know that was the original request, but we didn't have access to those landowners. My concern is that's a creek bed. Like, what are you actually going to be able to develop right there? And it seems a little cart before the horse in trying to get zoning changes before there's any intention for what to do with the property. I know it's for sale, so
Sure.
what could be done there?
So that remaining area is going to be about 1.35 acres that would be changed into C1 zoning. Out of that, about 0.85 would be buildable land. So 0.85 acres is plenty big to be able to do medical office, things like that, of that nature, or you can do backfill. There's a lot of things you can do on a construction aspect to be able to make your land usable.
Are there any sort of setback requirements we have in our ordinance to keep away from floodplain? Because is it a creek? I mean, it looks like it could be a decent sized creek running through it if we ever get rain again.
There is FEMA floodplain there. So as part of any development, they will have to do a detailed flood study to determine the boundaries of that. So there will be required setbacks away from the floodplain.
You ready to do public hearing, council?
Sure. Move we go into public hearing.
Second.
Motion second to go from regular to public hearing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Mr. Mahoney, you've signed up to speak on this.
I better understand the situation.
Okay. Anyone else to speak on behalf or in opposition? Tim?
I just have a question for staff.
We need you on record.
Yes. Just have a question for staff. Which set of floodplain analyses are we going to be living under these days? When will the floodplains change? Because I know it's been a long time since they've been looked at, and I assume they're going to expand.
That's correct. So the current FEMA floodplain maps are dated back to 2001. So prior to Hurricane Harvey hitting the Texas coast, the city was actually Gillespie County was high on the list for a remapping effort. Unfortunately, those priorities changed for FEMA when Harvey hit. So I think we're moving back up to the top of the list. We haven't received any schedules from FEMA, but I would say within the next 2 to 3 years, we can anticipate a remapping effort. There is new data out there that's going to be utilized for those maps, so there's going to be substantial changes. We've done some preliminary studies with our drainage consultant, Friesen Nichols, and they've looked at it, and there's parts of towns where it's going to expand substantially. There's other areas where it may actually be reduced. So anytime we have a developer that's working along a creek bed, a FEMA floodplain, we typically advise them of this, and so a lot of times their engineers take that into account and utilize that new data, so there isn't an issue in the future.
So from a planning and zoning perspective for us, when we go through this before the city council ever gets it, are we to require the applicant to look at the new numbers, or are we going to provide them, or do they have to get them on their own?
We can provide them with some of the models we have available. It's not necessarily a requirement per se, but as we review the civil construction plans, that's something we're working with the design engineer on.
Well, to Emily's point, at some point we're going to have to decide which ones we're going to do and how far in advance we want to start requiring them. Because the point she just made was, are they going to be able to build in it now and 3 or 4 years from now when the numbers change? Are they going to be in it and then have to have the insurance?
Well, I will tell you, unless they do private funding, the banks are going to catch it. They're required to get that study.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Garrett, how often does FEMA normally update? There's no schedule.
There's no set schedule. I will say a lot of their remapping efforts are focused on urban areas and fast developing areas. Okay. So we're still considered rural.
Okay.
So we're pretty.
So it's whenever they get around to it.
Correct.
Okay.
We talked about this a little bit at the comprehensive plan, the joint meeting we had with planning and zoning, because unless there's that certainty, whenever something happens, God forbid, and something's built and then there's a flood, people don't say, well, they're going to come to the city and say, you morons, you let them build there, so just want to be careful with whatever the new modeling is. It's helpful to know that y'all are working with Reese and Nichols on that. Thank you.
Anyone else to speak on this in public hearing? Let's go out.
I move we go from public hearing to regular session.
Second.
Motion second to go back into regular session. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, so staff recommends this with the, you see the staff recommendation there, council, matching the C1 zoning to the rear property line, leaving the remaining portion of the north R1. And we will, any further discussion or questions?
I move to approve.
Okay, we have this in two pieces. We have to approve the land use and the ordinance separately. So let's look at ordinance 2310, adopting a change to the comp plan for land use.
I move to approve ordinance 2023-10, adopting the change in the comprehensive plan.
Second. Motion second to approve this. Any further questions, discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the next one is ordinance 2311, amending the zoning ordinance.
Make that motion.
Second. Motion second to approve that ordinance. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Are you Mr. Simmons?
No, sir, I'm Mr. Hahn,
Okay.
Adam Hahn, I'm their.
I probably should know who you are. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
All right. We're ready for item 8, other action items and updates. First, we'll take a presentation on the City of Fredericksburg Municipal Court operations. Happy to have the judge here, Shelley.
All right, good morning, Mayor and Council. I'm here today to present on Fredericksburg Municipal Court becoming a court of record. I am Judge Becker.
We're pulling it for presentation. There it is.
There we go. And to talk about how it can benefit the community, the types of things that it can do. As you know, at this point, we are not a court of record, we're a court of non-record. So I'm going to explain how that changes as well. So how does the community benefit from becoming a court of record? Basically, it extends the authority of the court, and it is specific to city ordinances. So it will provide an additional tool for ordinance compliance. Also, locally, you maintain control over city issues, and the way you do that is through the appeals process, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute, and with some of the tools that are provided through a court of record. Ordinarily, you would have to go to district court in order to do those types of things, and instead you can use municipal court. By using municipal court, particularly for city ordinance violations, your deputy city attorney is representing the city. Once they go up to the county level, your city attorney is no longer involved. You no longer have anybody there that's voicing an opinion as to community interest. And so becoming a court of record keeps it down into municipal court where you're being heard as far as the outcome of the case. The community also benefits because any fines and fees are kept within the city. Once those go up to county court, they keep any fines or court costs. And it's the efficient use of administrative staff and officers, which I will talk about in just a minute. So the difference is in a court of record, of course, you're keeping a formal permanent record, which means different rules will apply to the documents that are filed, kind of in the same way that you all must be on the record. Now all proceedings in municipal court will have to be on the record. It also changes the appeals process, like I talked about, and it will consolidate ordinance enforcement. And the way it does that is becoming a court of record, expanding the civil authority of the court means the administrative hearing process can now be put under the municipal court. That means we will handle all the administrative things that City Hall is now having to do. We will do all of that. We will have automated systems where they automatically download into our software. Everything will be processed there in that building so people don't have to worry about where do I go to pay, where do I go in order to take care of some of these things. Everything will be consolidated there. That also will let your code enforcement officers and your police officers, depending on what it is they're citing, they now know everything is just going to go to municipal court. So with regard to expanding civil jurisdiction, by adding that civil branch on, you're going to have several different types of enforcement actions that you can then file. Some of these are listed up there. Ordinance violations, if they come in on, let's say, even the administrative hearing side, or if they were to come in under municipal court as a criminal case, you're just imposing a penalty. You're not addressing what the underlying issues may be. These are the types of cases that can be filed if you want to address underlying issues. You would usually have to go to district court for these, and instead you can go to municipal court. Things such as nuisance abatement and removal, various injunctions. It extends the authority of the court, so it's property owned by municipal court. That's also policed by the municipality, but it's outside of city limits. So it extends that. It also extends authority so that administrative search and seizure warrants, if you have a property where you're concerned about whether or not it should be condemned, some of these other things, they can now go to municipal court and ask for that warrant so they can at least go into the property and investigate those things. Civil citation hearings, I already mentioned, we can then have the administrative hearing process under the court. And then it also allows for civil judgment enforcement on your administrative hearings right now. If you have somebody that doesn't pay, you got to go to JP court, county court, possibly district court, depending on how large that amount is, actually file a suit in order to get any of that money. In municipal court, jurisdiction would already be established in order to do that, and then we already have collections set up within municipal court, so they would be forwarded for that process in the event you have someone who's not paying on a judgment. The appeals process. In a court of non-record, even if a case goes all the way to jury trial and there's a decision, they can file an appeal and they get a brand new trial. It completely starts over like nothing had ever happened in municipal court. In our court right now, they can also do what's called a leapfrog appeal, which is that they can enter a plea of guilty or no contest. They file a bond in the amount of the fine and court costs, then they leapfrog up to county court and they start over. So they get 2 bites at the apple, essentially, and then once it's moved up to county court, your county attorney does that, and chances are they're not going to have the same interest that perhaps the city does with regard to that issue, and your deputy city attorney is no longer up there doing the case. It's being negotiated, it's being tried, all decisions are made up at the county level, including keeping any fines or court costs. The difference is because a permanent record is being established through recording equipment, now the Texas Court of Appeals rules will apply, which means they have to be some sort of trial-based error before it goes up. You don't get another bite at the apple. Instead, it has to be done on a specific legal error that you then need to appeal. And that's what happens in county court and district court as well. So in terms of consolidating ordinance enforcement, this is going to streamline your overall process. I already talked about the same kind of Software and equipment that's currently being used by FPD is going to be the same kind of thing that will be used for code enforcement. That particular equipment interfaces already with municipal court, so it's simply using what is already in place. All of it gets automatically downloaded into our system, so you really have a lot of the IT already in place. You're not having to make any changes with that. Efficient use of city employees. You have court staff that can process these cases instead of taking time away from other individuals at City Hall. Also, with the appeals process, you'll find that instead of your officers having to go and do a case twice, you're only doing it one time. Also, rather than presentations of cases in the administrative hearing process being done by your code enforcement officers, you have a deputy city attorney that can take care of that. So code enforcement stays over here doing other things rather than sitting in a hallway waiting to go in and talk about various cases. It increases standardization because everybody knows where to file and what to do and what the procedures are. They're the same for every case because, again, it's all consolidated over in municipal court. And again, it provides ordinance violation alternatives to you with that expanded civil authority, so you can look at possibly filing some other cases that address underlying issues, not just penalizing the violations themselves. With regard to staffing, there are some changes because it is now a permanent record. All of your judges must be an attorney. This position is appointed again by City Council. With the way that the ordinance is written, you will designate certain administrative duties so everybody knows what it is they need to do within the hierarchy and within the structure. You will need to appoint a substitute judge. At this point in time for staff, I really don't see the need for an additional associate judge. Rather, it's somebody who's on call, kind of if there's some sort of illness or something where I'm not able to be there, then you've got somebody on backup who's there for docket days or whatever needs to be done. Your clerk is also appointed. They are under the same procedures as a county clerk. You will also designate that individual's duties within your city ordinance. There is the need to have an appointed court reporter. However, all of the record will be done on a recording system very similar to what you have here. The court reporter, you don't pay. If there is an appeal, then the person who is appealing pays for that transcript. They just have to have the official designation as the court reporter, but they're not in there transcribing whenever there's a docket. They're only used whenever there's an appeal. The city does not pay for that transcript unless the individual is found to be indigent. Then the city would need to pay for that record. And you're talking about, usually they're about a few $100s in order to get a trial transcribed. So that's the only time you would have to pay anything with regard to a court reporter. Your hearing officer must also be appointed and must also be an attorney in that particular structure. So any kind of additional costs, your recording software annually can be anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 annually, depending on what it is you want to come with that software. With regard to staffing, like I mentioned, you would have a substitute judge where you would put, aside any money, and that's kind of an emergency fund if you needed a substitute judge to come in. Again, you would have to at least designate a court reporter. Also, what is not on here is I've had a chance to talk with staff over at City Hall about how much time is being dedicated to preparing the cases for the administrative hearing process. We would need an additional clerk in order to specifically process those cases, given the amount of them that are coming in, so that things still continue to operate smoothly. You would need to pay either a law firm or attorney in the drafting and amending of ordinances. You would pass an ordinance establishing the court of record, what everybody's duties are, but then you would have to amend your administrative hearing ordinance as to the appeals process and then placing that within the municipal court department. There would need to be some sort of money set aside for an indigency fund in the event I find that someone is indigent and cannot afford the appellate record. The timeline for this is for court of record, we are required to have a courtroom. So it's just a matter of finishing that remodel, which I hope we can get done within the next 6 to 7 weeks. But beyond that, we have to make sure that the recording software is in place, because that first court appearance, we've got to be able to have the recording software ready to go. You need to create and approve the court of record ordinance itself, which will take however much time that it takes for the city attorney to get to that. I will be working with them because it's a little bit of a unique situation, so that all of the duties are designated correctly in there. And then identifying and hiring staff is going to take just a little bit of time. And I know we have an executive session with regard to employees, and we can discuss, some of the specifics that may not be appropriate in a public hearing. So from a consolidation standpoint, procedurally and with your staff, given the limited cost that it's going to take in order to create a court of record, the fact that you're going to have some additional options with regard to city ordinances, I think at this point in time for Fredericksburg, the community would really benefit from establishing a court of record rather than having a court of non-record. Any questions?
Yeah. Quick question. You mentioned fines and fees will stay within the city, which was concerning. I didn't realize they didn't stay here. And also additional staff is needed here. I'm just kind of curious, just a ballpark number. Any idea what that fee dollar amount is that we're losing currently, and could that offset in whole or some portion of new staff required?
I don't think that it's at the level where it's going to have a significant impact as far as those fines and fees going up to county court. But yes, anything that's done up in county court, they keep everything, and we vacate any kind of judgment that's down here. They've already paid, they actually get that money back. The county keeps everything on appeal.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Judge, I'm a little confused. You're talking about the court reporter. Is the cost of the transcript is paid for by the appellant, but it's in your staffing as an additional item.
Yes, in the city ordinance, you'll have to designate a specific person who then becomes like the court certified court reporter, because they are tasked with creating that record that's been certified up on appeal. You have to designate who that individual is for the court of record.
So is that attached to a dollar amount for compensation?
No,
okay.
It's not. It just has to be an official designation.
Do you have any idea when I know it's shot in the dark, but if we were to do this, do you know how long it would take before we really do need a substitute judge? An associate judge?
I don't think you're going to need an associate judge.
Anytime
I think the way that our dockets are right
Okay.
now, you don't need an additional staff member
Okay.
whenever it comes to a judge.
Okay.
But we are required to have a substitute judge
Understand.
just in case of an emergency, so you have someone who can be on the bench that you
I said
approve.
substitute by mistake. I meant associate.
Yes.
And also, what dictates the difference between $2,000 and $5,000 annually for the recording software?
For the
number of
recording,
cases?
no, for the recording, it's features. So
Okay.
it's either 2,000 or up to 5,000. The 5,000 basically has text, has speech to text, which can be really helpful whenever it comes to recording. And then it has a few other features, kind of like the basic packages
Okay.
at 2,000.
And the cost you're asking for, have they been considered in this year's budget, the new budget?
No, it will be added for discussion on Thursday.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions?
Any other questions for Judge?
In your remodel, do you have enough office space?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
I did take into account, just in case the administrative hearing officer was going to come in, I've already taken that into account with regard to bids for furniture and the way that I did the layout of the court. So that is available, including that clerk that would be there for the administrative hearings.
Well, and that's the plan, isn't it? Mr. Mursky goes to.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Thank you for taking the initiative on this. I think it just completely makes sense that we should be a court of record.
I think it's probably good timing for y'all, and I wanted to bring it up because we are in the middle of the remodel. That way it can be wired correctly with the recording equipment.
So today we're not not considering, we're just hearing the presentation. Do you have a preferred timeline for us to consider and approve this resolution if we're going to?
I know the timing is a bit off because you would have to invest the money into drafting the ordinance, which is why I wanted to get the presentation first to see if there was interest there. And so I think it would be a matter of talking with your city attorney to see if the next step is going ahead and drafting that ordinance, putting it on for public comment, that kind of thing, rather than, because the minute you authorize that court of record, that's what we become. And so I need to make sure everything is in line and we're ready to go whenever you pass it.
So the next few months? Okay.
I believe so.
Are you hoping to get this done by October 1st?
No, we're going to need more time because you are required to have a courtroom. I've got to make sure that that's available. We got the furniture. We're ready to go. I'm trying to move that on just as fast as I can.
So your target date, February 24, is the target date for you to begin operating as court record?
It would be, but I think we can do it faster. That is worst case scenario.
Okay.
If we just get completely bogged down.
It seems like a long way, but it's probably not.
Right. No, I think we can probably do it a little bit quicker, even if I'm waiting for certain things to come in.
Yeah.
I don't see a reason why I can't go ahead and use the space over there for work, even if it's a folding table.
All right. Any further questions for Judge Becker? We'll see you in executive session then.
All right. Thank you.
Item 8B, receive an update from our PIO on the city's website analytics, possible mobile app, and mass communication software, and provide directions to her for proceeding. Lee Foige.
Thank y'all for having me. Bobby and I had a conversation and he requested this information to be presented to you guys. If you can see the screen, got just a few slides to go over to talk about our website analytics, possibility of a mobile app integration, and the new mass communication system that we will be putting into place. I'll start with a little bit of background. Our website, our website, as far as I know, when Russell Immel was here, he was the one who developed and started it. I started working for the city in 2000, and I was an engineering technician. At that time, we had one IT guy, who was Russell, and myself. I came straight out of college with a degree in computer science, so I got handed a lot of computer stuff. The website was one of those things, and back then we utilized Microsoft Front Page to maintain and manage the website. So don't know if any of y'all are familiar with Front Page, but it's kind of the it's been given the what you see is what you get software, which is exactly what it is. No bells, no whistles, no app integration, forward, plain simple. In 2010, we decided to move to Civic Plus as our vendor. They host the website, and it's a very easy system to use. It's a lot of plug and play, drag and drop, very easy to modify pages, add your data. We've stayed with them since, and we've also incorporated some additional products that they offer. One of those is Civic Rec. We utilize them with our Parks and Recreation Department for reservations for parks facilities, ball fields, pavilions, things of that nature. Pretty easy to use. Excuse me. Another one we've recently implemented is Civic Clerk for our agenda and minutes management. It's been working very well. And the one that we're implementing right now is Civic Ready. That is our mass communication software that we're going to be moving to. First, we'll start with a little bit of fun data. I'm a numbers nerd. I like seeing things like this. These are the top views of our city pages on our website from July 17th through August 13th. So about a month's worth of data.
Lee,
Yes.
is there any way to take that to full page?
Do I need to do it on
Full
this
screen.
end or? Is that better? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you. I think you're on page 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
What you can see here is over on the, let me move the mouse, there you go. Over on the right-hand side, the views that we've had total are not quite 52,000, and that's just for 1 month. Users, just a hair over 19,000. But of course, the homepage has the most views because that's normally where people start. But our second highest is the park campground, which is not unusual. Our parks and recreation pages are usually pretty high in the list. The next is the news flash. That's on the home page where we post any kind of new things that are happening, coffee with the city manager events, the town hall meetings, start of leaf collection, things of that nature. The search, which is good to know, is being utilized quite a bit as well. Jobs, watering restrictions, the calendar, and so forth.
Lee, are you an office of one? Do you do all the web?
I'm an office
management?
of one, yes. Okay. On the next slide, I brought up the searches. That's been something that we've been talking about internally. At the top right-hand corner of the website, there's a little search box where you can actually type in anything that you want to try to find. And it has analytics for that as well. The top item, and these are searches from January 1 to August 14th. So I pulled this up yesterday. Top search is water restrictions with 219. Then, surprisingly, is maps. So Evan, this may be, I'm not sure, yeah, he's here. This would probably be a good thing for you to know, is that people are really wanting to know where our maps are at and how to get to them. So that's almost 200. Next, landfill, STR, which is not surprising. Email permits, DRC, lots of development services stuff there. Wanted to kind of go over a little bit of information with the search. What had happened, we had a conversation, or I've had a conversation with a couple of council members about how many results come up when they do a search. Well, what happens with the search, without getting too technical, it searches for the keywords you type in. When it does the search, it searches pages, documents, links, everything associated with the site that has those words in it. So, for example, when I did a search for just water conservation, prior to going in and unpublishing a lot of old documents that were no longer valid or relevant, I had almost 900 results with water conservation. What it picks up when you type in water conservation just like this, it's looking for the word water and it's looking for the word conservation, not necessarily together. So any place we had the word water, it's coming up. So we went in, I deleted all of the old information. So now we have a mere 515. So that's still a lot, but there is a trick to getting it to do what you want it to do. And what you have to do is use quotes. If you put quotes around water conservation, it drops it down to 53 results rather than 515. So if you look right here, there's a little link that says advanced search. You can click on advanced search and it gives you a little bit of guidance on how to search for a particular thing. You can tell it, I want all these words, I want this exact phrase, which is what I did with water conservation. You can do any of these words using or in between your search. You can tell it, I don't want any of these words by using the minus sign. So that will help narrow your results.
Hey, Lee, just
Yes.
a quick question at the risk of solving a problem.
Uh-huh.
This requires user training at the citizens level, and I think that might be challenging. Is there a way
Right.
simply to prioritize the most recent date? Because they're probably looking for what's the stage, what are we in, fire restrictions,
Right.
what's the new news?
I questioned that with Civic Plus, and their response to me was the way that they prioritize the order of the list is not based on date. It is based on weight of the tag that's used. So the tags carry a certain weight based on name, content. I think there was one other thing, but I can't remember what it was. It's not necessarily the date that it was published, because we do have quite a few documents that are older that are still very relevant. So they don't want to incorporate date as being one of the higher weights, because just for example, our water conservation ordinance was put on back in, oh gosh, it was originally done many years ago, but it's still very relevant. So they don't want to keep that at the bottom of the list because it's an older document. It's still a very relevant document. So that's why they don't really look at date as a particular heavy weight. Mm-hmm.
Is it reasonable to assume that your vendor, the city, Civic, whatever it is,
Civic Plus?
yeah, that, well, let me ask this. They are not equipped or willing or something to upgrade their search engine based on the way that you would like for it, or we would like for it to operate.
We do have some flexibility. We can assign the weights to certain things. Date is not one of the things we can assign a weight to, though.
Well, one of my considerations for upgrading web,
Mhm.
and I just look at it as an end user. I don't know anything about how to make it work.
Mhm.
Is that it is intimidating anyway, because the city has so much information about so many different things. But it seems like these days there is search engine intelligence that could figure, okay, these days this is what most people come to the website to find out.
Right.
No matter what I put in the search bar. And I wonder if that would require a new vendor or something. And I would be open to your recommendation for that.
Sure. And that's something that we can pass along to Civic Plus and see if there's other entities that are utilizing them, and if they've had the same concerns,
Yeah.
and see how receptive they would be to making some changes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
That was the same question I had, Randy. If we could get those sorted by date, and looking at a couple of other websites. In fact, I'm on Kerrville's website right now, their Civic Plus. It also does not, when I search for water conservation, have them sorted by date. So it seems like there could be an algorithm where that would be, the second tier of the hierarchy for sorting that data. It'd be very useful, especially if you have 100 results. In this case, there are 417 pages that include water conservation. So that's something we'll continue to work on. It's something I'd mentioned to Lee to try to flesh out.
And maybe it's not having all those items published that are irrelevant. I mean, I'm on the water conservation side, and there are 10 sub pages off of that. It's so much information. I think people still get confused. I was contacted by someone out in the county who said, we're in stage 3. Well, you go to the stage 3 page and it doesn't say we're not in this stage right now, but this is what it is. So it just is simplifying, consolidating of information that I think needs to happen. You have one page that says drought stages. We're in stage 4. This is the breakdown.
So I get in trouble for being too detailed, but if we can put a weight, if there's some metric that they can
Mhm.
using your analytics, figure out what are the most frequently visited pages.
Yes.
Put that weight on there, so it's not use the search.
Okay, we'll look into that.
What we don't know at this point, correct, is whether what we have can be adapted sufficiently to what we think we'd like to move to, or whether we'd have to go to a totally different provider.
If it's something like what Emily is describing, just consolidating, that is something we can do. I look at it like skeletal structure. You have you have your trunk, you have your arms, hands, fingers. It all comes back to one thing. So if we can take the 5 different water stages, combine them, and not have so many fingers out there, that's something that we can do in-house. So that wouldn't require any kind of major modification from Civic Plus. Me, myself, and I.
You and your staff.
So
Okay.
I really agree with
Right.
And I'm not saying our bit. It's very important that they stay current.
Sure. Understand.
And before we get into mobile app, just from a detail, like, would it be helpful if I don't want to bash our website right now. You're doing a great job and it's very current. It's just so much information. So
Right.
like highlighting the departments tab, like it's a whole page of departments, and
Right.
I mean, I'm on council and I get overwhelmed going to this. So I want it to be more user friendly for people. Does it need to be an audit? Like, do you recommend having, department heads go through their individual fiefdom and then figuring out what's the most relevant, what they get asked the most, so we're not creating a bunch of, open records requests or,
Right.
calls for people?
And that is one reason we went with Civic Plus initially, was departments had the capability and the access to maintain their own pages. So a lot of the information that is on each of these pages gets put on by the department. I don't ever see it. The only time I see it is when they have issues with navigation or can't figure out how to do this, and then I'll get involved. So the departments have done a pretty good job of taking care of their own business and removing what needs to be removed, adding what needs to be added. That's kind of a double-edged sword, though, because kind of, that maintaining a website is not really in their wheelhouse. Their development services, their engineering, they're not website people. So they're doing the best they can with the time that they have, and I'll step in when they need my help. But no, that's one reason we went with Civic Plus, was so that they had that access to keep things current.
Since you've been working with it, what's your assessment of our website presence?
I really like the website. I've gotten a lot of good feedback from the public. In fact, at Coffee with the City Manager this last week, I had a gentleman after the event tell me that he didn't see any issues with it. One of our police officers that looks at a lot of other websites has said that ours provides the most information from any other website that he's had to search. So overall, I think the functionality of it is really good. There are some things that need to be cleaned up, but overall, I think it's fairly user friendly. But like y'all say, it's just a lot of information.
Okay.
And a lot of people want everything up front.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody likes to dig for things. So I think that's why a lot of that information is a lot closer to the home page and are showing up in the list like you talked about, so that they see it, click on it there, and they don't have to drill down very far. So,
Go ahead.
Mobile app is something else that we've been talking about for a while. Civic Plus does have a mobile app option. However, there are a ton of mobile apps out there, not necessarily linked to
Civic Plus. It depends on what type of functionality that you're wanting it to have. If you're wanting something that just pulls up a website in a more functional application on a mobile device, going with something like Civic Plus's option would probably be good. If you're looking for something that's a little more interactive with the public, wanting them to be able to report potholes that Clinton says don't exist in this town, or somebody, watering, or if there's something that the health department may need to be made aware of, they could develop an app or use another vendor that has that type of reporting capabilities. And it's pretty interactive. They would submit the concern. It would get emailed to whoever is assigned that concern. They can create a work order from that. It can turn around and then be done. They can then notify the person who reported it that it's been taken care of. So there's that type of app. There's just all kinds of apps. So that's one question I have is, what exactly are you guys looking for? Are you wanting an all-in-one solution, or is there something in particular that you'd like to see happen?
There's one area, and this is, I know Garrett's going to throw something at me when I mention Granicus, but I was pushing Granicus on this for a mobile app coming from Motorola. It's not that hard. You have to really compress the data down to relevant stuff for a small screen. It's,
right.
But for our police and first responders, code enforcement officers, if they had something on a mobile app, if they're getting a call on a short-term rental or a code violation, wherever, that they're getting some pertinent information, here's the location, here's the address, here's the owner, here's the contact person, just something really basic to help shorten that response time and shorten the path to resolution of the issue. So that's kind of where my head goes.
Okay.
My thoughts on an app was a more simplified interface. So maybe that would just be a mobile version of the website that
Right.
would be the default to pull up on a smartphone.
Okay.
I think in terms of getting information out if there's any emergencies, so kind of an extension of, like the, what was it, the kind of supervised detonation that went off yesterday, like being able to push something. So whether that's text or an app. I mean, I've turned all my notifications off, so it wouldn't be helpful, if an app was dinging me saying, hey, look out for this. So
yeah, we'll talk about that in just a second.
One other thought is, we talked about this in 2018, visioning is mass communication of the issue. Inbound storm, hail. We look at Maui today, the sirens didn't go off. I mean, how could we use this more broadly? And maybe there's different silos of what we use it and who's the end user of that.
And we'll talk about that in just a second. We talk about the mass communication software.
Also, I think that we have a few tourists that come to town, and they're going to pull up City of Fredericksburg, and then it needs to have a good link to CVB so that they can see the calendar, see the events, and things like that.
Right. And I don't recall, does the CVB have an app or not? I don't.
Nope.
No.
But it can take them to their website.
Right. And we do have a link to the CVB site from ours. So.
Okay.
Anything else on mobile app? Okay. This project here is a little bit near and dear to my heart. I'm a communications major, so mass communications is like all of the communications. We have recently incorporated Civic Ready into our toolbox from Civic Plus. It is the mass communication software that they use. This will be replacing the iInfo program that we've been using for a number of years that was made available to us through ACOG. And if you ever signed up to use or subscribe to iInfo, you notice it was very cumbersome. It's difficult to sign up. It's even more difficult to send a notification. So this, after the freezes, the Big Sky Fire, we knew it was time to pull the trigger on something that was a little more what we needed. So with the upcoming eclipse events, it was a great time to move to this particular software. Basically, what it will do is it will send out weather alerts. We can use it for emergency notifications, outage notifications if we're going to have power outage, water outage, planned or unplanned. It integrates with FEMA's iPause. I'm sure everybody's gotten Amber Alerts. Amber Alerts utilize iPause system. So it doesn't matter if you've subscribed or not subscribed, you're getting that notice. FEMA does require the people who send out these messages through iPause to have some training. So myself, Justin Calhoun, and Les Metzler are all taking iPause classes right now, Death by PowerPoint, but very interesting, very educational on how all of it works together. This particular system is also very easy to sign up for. It has a text to subscribe feature. So I'm sure you've seen these things posted on different stores' websites or on their wall saying, hey, text by me to this number. And it adds your cell phone number to their database so that whenever they send out a notice, it's going to your cell phone. The nice thing with that, come eclipse time, when we have our portable message boards up, we can have text opt in to this number. Visitors, locals, doesn't matter who, anybody who wants to receive notice that we send out will be able to subscribe. When the event is over, they can opt back out. So it's not a permanent thing if they don't want it to be.
For residents, is there a way that we could just have an opt-out default? So we could just add everyone that we have their contact info if they are, utility customers, something like that. Just because there's going to be some people that aren't going to be as tech savvy, and it would be nice to be able to just automatically give that to them.
I would need to check with Nick on that,
Okay.
Because I'm not sure if we have to have consent if we've already got their info.
Okay.
And I know people who have signed up and are subscribed to iInfo. I want to say there were going to be some issues getting their data, and we were just going to have to send out a message through iInfo letting them know they were going to have to resubscribe. We've been trying to figure out a way to make it work. Okay.
That's in process.
It's a little bit of a process, but are you talking about integrating the old subscriptions to the new system?
This is pretty nice communication.
Mm-hmm.
In process.
Yes, it is in process right now. We had training 2 weeks ago, and now we're doing our FEMA classes. We are going to have this up and running before the first eclipse in October. So we're wanting to have it running in September. It's already paid for. Yes, it's already done. And the other nice thing about this is one of those projects that is city and county. The county is going to be utilizing it as well. I want to say probably more for internal communication with their employees, but they do have access to send out the same types of info that we do. We'll talk a little bit about iPause, just because it is, if there's a way to reach anyone and everyone in a certain area, it's through this. It is, I always think of my dog's paw, but it's the integrated public alert and warning system. So what FEMA did is they created this system to provide emergency and life-saving information to the public through mobile phones using wireless emergency alerts, radio and television through the emergency alert system, and the NOAA weather radios. So anything that gets sent to iPause to distribute utilizes all of those avenues to receive information. Most counties And I want to say we have to go through the county. I don't think the municipality can do it by themselves. It has to be the county organization. So that's why Les, Justin, and I, all three, are doing this to get our education in that. So, but that will be something that will also be, hopefully we won't have to use it. But if we do have a major catastrophe or an emergency during one of the eclipse events, iPause is going to be the way to go, because we don't know that everybody has texted to subscribe. Any questions about iPause? Sure. And my door is open. Anytime you guys have a suggestion, or if you see an issue or a problem or something that you're concerned with, call me, text me, email me, come see me. I'm an open book. All right. Thank y'all. You bet. Thanks.
Council, let's do 8C and like break. Because we do. City manager report with several items, future agendas, and discussion regarding affordable housing, a typical every meeting. Just a couple of interesting pieces of information I want to share with you. Somebody said this to me. I don't know where it's from. It's been online report. Younger householders drove rebound U.S. home ownership. Rate of home ownership higher than before pandemic. All regions. According to the Census Bureau's current population survey. Home ownership continued to climb, downturn following foreclosure crisis, Great Recession of 08. The rates dipped in 2016, and home ownership rates have recovered approximately half of the 5.6% decrease from 04 to 2016.
And something's wrong with the audio. It's not really right through. The lights on. Emily was real clear when she was on.
Test 1, 2.
Yeah.
Test.
Oh, you just couldn't hear me? Okay. Rate of home ownership is higher than before the pandemic. The recovery began before the pandemic hit the United States in 2020, et cetera. Younger households typically are more likely to rent than own homes. Yet, from 2016 to 22, home ownership among adults under 55 went up, but remained stable among older populations. The other factoid, or a factoid I wanted to mention to you, is that I was reading an article about Midland, Texas. I grew up in Odessa, and so every now and then I read what's going on out there. And one of the factoids is that this is recent, this is now, that half of the homeowners in Midland are between 27 and 41 years old. Half. And what that reflects is the business of Midland, oil. And these people getting out of college who are starting at 16 years in that business. So obviously it's a duh that the connection between a really good economy that pays certain things feeds your housing needs and economy as well. So, and the ownership. What's the ownership in Odessa? Believe it or not, Tony, that factoid was not on the, is probably not anything to brag about. What I just wanted to say, Council, is that we continue, I know you are, I'm continuing to find out options to our housing challenges. I've heard it said several times here by a couple of council members that, and I agree, that the best thing for us is some path to home ownership, because that creates the community components that I perceive make us a healthier community. I understand most, I think, of the limitations to that and the realities and so forth. I've been talking to a company that does tax credit building, and have all of their explanation and requirements. I'm becoming more firmly convinced that whatever we do as a city, using the toolbox that we have, should, I don't want to say I'm still being educated, but not taking property off the tax rolls, because we continue to have issues about our tax rates and the needs that we have for people who pay the taxes. We have a significant number whose taxes are frozen, and yet we continue to look at things we need to do to continue to move forward as a progressive and innovative community while still honoring the historical preservations and so forth. So trying to put all of those eggs in one basket is difficult, which we know, but that's where I'm looking at, and I'm happy to share this with you from Overland Partners is the organization that I talked to, and she sent me a pretty extensive explanation of their toolbox and also links to other things that are good for our education. We have tools in our toolbox to effectively address some of the paths to the goals we have, including the things that we've done today: land use, zoning, expedited permitting, fee waiving, special considerations in service to this broad and critical objective. So we continue. Also, the report will come out today, the Fredericksburg Housing Report. It always comes out on the 15th, but the latest one that came out regarding June, the July one will come out today, but the one in June, interesting fact, you may already know that days on the market in Fredericksburg exploded in 2023 from 33 days in 22 to 121 days in 23. Monthly months of inventory exploded to 9.2 months of inventory this month, or June, compared to June 2022, it was 2.6. So I'm not sure what all that says. I'm not a realtor, but obviously it shows that the market has softened. Is that how you call it? Okay. All of those things you probably know that I'm enjoying learning, and wanted to tell you that we continue to look for solutions and the appropriate assessment of the problem. Anyone else?
Okay, a couple of things. One related, there's a meme that was on Instagram, and it said, when your starter home becomes your forever home because you locked in 3% interest, 30-year note. I think a lot of people are in that place, and that might be some of the studying. But a couple of things. Education is a huge component, and I've been talking with the Board of Realtors here and the Chamber about some sort of consortium type thing where you've got bankers, builders, title companies, realtors, all showing how you can reduce fees, save on building costs, reduction to no realtor fees, lower closing costs, things like that, and getting that in front of people who are wanting to buy and even sell, how that could help them. I talked with Frances Ferguson, who's the head of the Miller Foundation in Austin, and there's some similarities with their project. A lot is different. They had 750 some acres of public land already, and then Catellus, the developer, partnered with the city's Economic Development Corporation and created this nonprofit. So kind of a need to get the right people in the right places on the bus for that to apply here. But she was very gracious in offering to help us as we look for more information if we need to go there to see what a land trust looks like. I think we're not quite there yet. We need to get some more people in the right places before we go into that. She said it's less about wealth creation, but it could be something where you would sell a house and a teacher would be able to buy it and then could sell it to another teacher. It keeps those prices low. What's the other thing? Oh, and then just approving more projects like the Elora May condo. I mean, condo is something where you can, have actual wealth. You can establish yourself beyond just another apartment. So, like seeing more of that. It's interesting because any kind of federal aid programs are usually geared more towards apartments, which is a rental thing, instead of single family or condos. So, to your goal of path to ownership, looking to different things besides apartments.
And I want to note again that Mr. Briley brought the initiative for housing regarding our police and fire.
Yeah, real quickly. So I won't go into all the detail, but just a two-step process. One is retention. If we're losing good viable candidates because of the top of the funnel, we don't have as many people coming into that anymore. So the strategy is retain what you have. So I, put that together, which will be presented, I think, on Thursday. And then step two, which is more encompassing of all fire, EMS, first responders, is putting together a program to incentivize these folks to move at least into our county, if not our town. So I'm putting together two formulas that would say if the city invests in a stipend, understanding we only allocate budgets for 1 year, but potentially look at a vision of 2 years, an option to go to 3, but that would be the stopping point. So the idea is to get these folks to move into our county or into our town, understanding the cost of housing. And the other part I wanted to ask this gentleman was here earlier, for any bankers out there, and I'm not a banker, but could we somehow look at a preferred rate for first responders and help those folks? Again, just every obstacle that we can remove to a path to ownership, we would all like to explore. So I'm just going to ask that question, and I'll pursue that with any bankers in the room.
Let me tell you, when you're dealing with the federal government, and Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, you pretty much have to, if you do that, because people, you're not going to sell the sector. It's not the end of the world. It's just, I'm sure the next
Well, we'll continue to educate and explore, and I'm hoping, Council, that we'll come up with something substantive and specific before the end of this calendar year. That's my goal. I know that it's also a topic in the comp plan, the housing issues and zoning related issues and so forth. Anything else? Thank you. I would like to take a recess now for 7 minutes, and then we'll resume. Thank you.
Everyone.
24-hour custody. Wow. They have a tower.
What?
All right, we're all here. Let's resume. Thank you. We'll go to item number 9, City Manager's Report. Clinton, thank you for waiting.
Okay, Mayor, Council, I have a number of items to report on under my report today. We will start with a swimming pool update. Very busy update at our pools. If I could get park staff, Andrea and group. Go ahead.
Morning, Mayor and Council. Andrew Schmidt, Parks Department. I also have Caitlin Brazel here this morning. She's our Recreation Superintendent to help with the presentation. I'm going to give Cody just a minute to get us set up. Okay, so I just wanted to give you all a report this morning about how operations went this summer at the swimming pools, and this should be pretty positive. Before we get into that, though, I wanted to make sure everyone was aware of what we actually have right now. We have 3 aquatic facilities. That includes Park Pool out at Lady Bird Johnson Park, Town Pool over by the middle school, which also includes the new splash pad. We also have 4 certified pool operators on staff. We were required to have 1, but because we have so many facilities and we require so many chemical checks, we have 4 at this point to help with that. We also have 2 lifeguard instructors for the first time. This is a real benefit for us because it allows us to have classes for our kids here or the young adults here instead of having to ship them off to Austin or San Antonio to take the classes. We had 25 lifeguards this summer and 4 cashiers, which that was the most lifeguards we've had since in my time here since at least 2015. Last year, council also approved a new position, our recreation coordinator. That position was specifically to help with pool operations and training the lifeguards and to help Caitlin with her duties. And then we also have other various maintenance staff and administrative staff that also helps with the swimming pools, including chemical checks at the splash pad. Just to talk a little bit about what it takes to be a lifeguard. You do have to be 15 years old, and there is a pretty stringent prerequisite swimming test that the lifeguards have to take. They have to swim 300 yards consecutively without touching bottom. It's not timed, but they do have to use controlled breathing, and they can only use 2 strokes, either breaststroke or crawl. They have to perform a diving brick test, which they have 100 seconds to complete. And that's that we throw the brick in the deep end. They have to go down and get it, get back to the deck, and jump out within that 100 seconds. And there's some more details on that one. And then lastly, they have to tread water for 2 minutes, only using their feet and not their hands. And that isn't it. They had a person they were trying to save. They have to swim using just their feet, no hands. In addition to that, we also are required to do regular in-service training. So that's done throughout the summer by our 2 LGIs or lifeguard instructors, and that's based on how much they work. So we normally do them 2 times a month, sometimes more because a lot of times the kids can't make the class. So Caitlin and Haley are doing pretty much regular training throughout the summer, regular in-service training to keep the guards up on their skills. Some of the changes this year, we did add lifeguards to our morning swim out at Park Pool. We had a little hiccup at the beginning of the summer when the insurance company told us we had to have lifeguards during that time. So we got things started a little bit late, but we were able to add those. That was an extra 112 hours of lifeguard time. The main reason we were able to do that, though, was 2 different things. We have our own LGIs on staff, and we increased the pay to $18 an hour. We also had the splash pad open, which was a brand new facility that the Morning Rotary Club donated to the city. It's open Tuesdays through Sundays, and we have to check those chemicals every 4 hours at a minimum while those are open. So we've been able to manage that, and it's been pretty heavily used, especially certain times. 10 to 12 times seems to be one of the most popular times parents want to come out with their kids and then bring them home to take naps and eat lunch after that. And then one other change, we did contract a third party to come out and help with some of the cleaning at the swimming pools, which has helped.
Andrea, has the splash pad increased the attendance at Town Pool?
Yes, sir. So absolutely. If you'll see on this chart that I just put up, attendance at Park Pool has been pretty steady. We're just under 12,000 people, but the attendance at Town Pool set a record since at least 2015, and my guess is it's set an all-time record today, or this summer, rather, I should say. So attendance went up over 3,600, and we are still open on some of the weekends right now. So that attendance will probably go up a little bit more. And I do think that had a big deal. The splash pad had a big impact on our attendance at Town Pool. I know it's kind of nice. I brought my kids there in the morning, play in the splash pad, and then go swim at Town Pool, and then head on home after that. We also added the 7 new lifeguards were what were added this summer so that we could staff Park Pool in the mornings. And then once those additional 7 lifeguards were added, and with some of these other changes, we had the smoothest operations we've ever had this summer, at least in my time here. This facility was very clean. We were told by the health inspector it's the cleanest she's ever seen it. We have really good staff. Everyone's trained and knows what's going on. So everything went very smooth this summer.
I assume those lifeguards are mainly from the high school type age.
Yes, they are.
So I guess the question is hopefully they'll come back next year or you'll have new recruits.
That's our hope. That's our hope. Is every year we try to bring back as many lifeguards as possible, and some of those lifeguards will move up and become our head lifeguards. It doesn't always happen. Some of the kids, especially once they go off to college, but the ones that are here local, our 15 and 16-year-olds, we definitely hope that they can come back for next year. Did you want to add something, Kayla?
I was just going to add that I've been working very diligently for the last 5 summers to change the culture of our aquatics programming and making sure we are up to the proper standards. It did take a little bit because when you're coming in and you are bringing everybody to the correct guidelines, it's not a fun job. When you are telling them that they have to be able to do everything that is required, we have to do all the chemical checks. But we've rebuilt a culture. They understand now the importance they have for our community and the safety. However, for the longest, we have been fighting the compensation factor across the community. Now they're like, Caitlin, I get to work for you because now I can explain to my parents, hey, this is a good financial opportunity as well for me. So thank you guys.
Excellent.
I do want to brag a little bit on our lifeguard staff, and that's what this next chart is. If you'll see here that our population is a little more than 11,000, and we still have a swimming pool open right now. And you'll see there are cities 4 or 5, 10 times bigger populations, and they've already either closed their pools or they're just barely maintaining on weekends as well. So I think that's something to say for Caitlin and Haley and how hard they worked this summer and getting these lifeguards just to have a positive attitude about coming to work, and they continue to want to work with us until Labor Day weekend. So we're excited that we can still have at least one of the pools and the splash pad continue to be open on the weekends.
Bravo. That's huge, y'all. Thank you.
Now, most of that thanks goes to Caitlin and Haley. I've just been here for support. They're the ones out there taking the phone calls at midnight from the kids and early at 7 a.m. in the morning, and every day they're off, they've been handling it. So
that's a good leader statement right there.
So some of our changes for 2024 is that based on just how everything went and the staff we have in place, we would continue as the city to operate the pools. At least that's our recommendation. We right now have in the budget to increase starting pay to $20 an hour for the lifeguards. The returners will be making just slightly more than that, and our head guards. We have discussed creating a swimming pool committee. One of the big concerns from some of the third-party groups that use the pools is having to pay for lifeguards during their swim in the mornings, which right now that's what's written into the agreement, and we did include some funds in the budget. We've checked into other cities, and a lot of cities have swim teams and private groups use their pools, and what they do is they also open it to the public during that time. That way, the third-party groups just continue to pay what they're paying now for their use of the lanes or the rec swim, but then we can also offer more time to the public. So that's something we can discuss during our the swimming pool committee, which we would hope to maybe have at least 1 or 2 council members on this committee, somebody from Create Healthy and from Surge Aquatics, and there's some other really gung-ho swimmers in the community that want to join in just to talk about things, to make sure we can recruit enough lifeguards and everything will run just as smooth next summer, hopefully even smoother. We'll start recruitment in February, which is typically when we start. So we'll start that again next year, and hopefully we can get enough lifeguards to maybe even open Town Pool in the mornings.
You will initiate the process of the pool committee.
Yes, so I'd like to schedule a meeting in maybe towards the end of September, our first meeting, and I'll just need to know if anyone on council would like to serve on that committee, and then we'll work with you and these other groups to make sure everyone can meet and we can kind of talk about pool operations. I don't want to wait till the last minute and start this in February. I'd like to start it now so that we have everything worked out way ahead of time. So, and as I mentioned, oh, I'm sorry, Bobby, you had a question?
No.
I was gonna say, as a mom, like to be able to have a morning opportunity to go besides swim lessons, that would be huge.
So our hope would be at Park Pool, if we opened it to the public in the mornings, it wouldn't necessarily be for recreational swim because those are recreational swim and swimming lessons and swim team don't really mesh. But we could have lane ropes designated for the public to come swim and do laps. At Town Pool, if we're able to open Town Pool in the mornings, then hopefully we could have some recreational swim parents with smaller kids and bring them out in the mornings before it gets too hot. This is just a goal right now, kind of a lofty goal, but we hope with our success this summer and boosting pay to $20 an hour, we have a chance at succeeding next year. So, and I do just want to again say how happy I am with how hard Caitlin and Haley worked this summer to make things go as smooth as possible. So if you have any questions, we can take them.
What a great report. And I'll tell you what, Andrea, it is true that good leaders always give kudos to their staff, to their people. And Caitlin, thank you. I'll tell you what I liked what you said. What you said was we've developed a culture in these people. That's so key. Thank you for being such a good leader for the town, both of you.
Thank you, Mayor.
I live close to Town Pool, and it's fun driving down the street and seeing cars lined a long way, and just pool full of kids and splash pad. So great job.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay, on to my monthly update. And again, this is the comprehensive update that I've been giving every second meeting the last couple of months, and you should have received the full report in your packet. I have selected a few slides out of that. If there's anything in particular you have questions about, again, I'm going to go through just the high points here. For folks in the audience and also watching online, I give an update generally on development, city projects, most of those public works, parks related, financial update, and then we have a catch-all miscellaneous section of the report. So starting with development, and this is a new slide regarding commercial development, new construction permits. This is what our annual permits have looked like since about 2014 to present. So relatively steady, although up and down a bit. And I don't know if there's any logic to this being up and down year after year. I understand the 2020 and then the increase in 21, 22 right there. But just to give you an idea of what those commercial building permits look like. Again, a listing of current commercial construction projects that are ongoing. I'm not going to go into any detail. We will eventually have a map where we'll be able to drill down on this, and you'll be able to see where a lot of these are located in proximity to each other. Again, just a continuation of our commercial development list. This is a graph, another relatively new graph that I like to show. And I've been showing this a lot with respect to our water consumption concerns. We hear a lot about halting development because we have all of this development activity going on, when in fact we average somewhere between 40 and 60 building permits a year. And we're on track right now for 50. We did have a pretty good increase again in that 21, 22 timeframe. That was across the state and a lot of the nation.
So you talk about a
yes, sir,
50% reduction this year?
Right, but we're back down to normal. If you look at 2012 through 2019, for instance, somewhere between that 40 and 60-ish number. So how does that coincide with the 1,228 lots we have on the ground at 50 per year? That's about 24 and a half years of lot inventory. Just to give you an idea, of course, I think we're probably going to see a gradual increase. Again, if you look at that normal line, we are increasing just a little bit. But a lot of inventory on the ground, and I think a lot of people see this, a lot of dirt being moved around as development. The potential certainly there for population growth beyond our normal 1.2%, but we're really not seeing that. But we are seeing that on the multifamily side, and this is another part of the equation that we're really kind of waiting to see who occupies a lot of the apartments that are currently being constructed. So recently completed, about 70 units under construction, just under 600. And we've talked about these in the past, the largest being the 1846 luxury apartments in the Woodlands cottages right there on Friendship Lane. And then approved but not started, 629. So when you look at the total multifamily coming online probably in the next couple of years, just shy of 1,300 total units. And we have just over 800. We've had just over 800 since 2019, and again, about 100% occupied. So we're more than doubling that apartment stock, that multi-family opportunity in the community.
I assume the approved and not started, a big chunk of that is outside of Friendship, right?
Some on Friendship. Anna, you want to
Yes,
talk about this?
Yes. So Seiko, obviously in Botanica, Keller Oaks Phase 1 is behind or above Burger King. The verandas at Frieden, obviously at Frieden, that would be a large one, 305 units there. And then Friendship Oaks Ranch is actually inside Friendship Oaks, the multifamily on South Creek Extension. So Lennar is doing a lot of the single family, but there's actually a multifamily component there as well on South Creek Extension. So yes, a lot of that is focused off of Friendship.
And it's verandas at Frieden, is that age restricted?
At least part of it, yes. I'm not sure if the whole thing is, but definitely a good chunk of it.
Okay, any other questions on development before we move on to projects and public works water supply? Chris, do you want to talk a little bit about this particular slide?
Certainly. Okay with me sitting here, or do you want me to go to the podium?
You're good right there.
So this is the water report card that we've been looking at month over month. This is just looking at last July versus this past July. You can just see the data here. Obviously the month of July was much hotter than previous months this year. So we did tick up on our water pumpage rates. But we're still under what we saw last year, the month of July. On average, we were about 200,000 gallons less per day, July 23 versus July 22. So still a good sign. People are looking to conserve, but it is hot and dry. People's yards are definitely burning up. So, but this is just the report that we've been seeing and putting together. We'll do another one for August and future months after that.
And again, we're looking for that 20% reduction in average daily use. And as we expected, we're a little bit off that mark over July because people really are seeing their yards dry up, and it's a pretty bad situation for a lot of folks that have really taken care of their yards and landscape around town for a long time. We'll talk about the code enforcement side of things and what those numbers look like with respect to watering restrictions, watering violations coming up here too. Chris, I'll let you handle these too.
Yes, sir. So this is the Canal well field. Again, we monitor this daily, working with the Underground Water Conservation District. Had a call with them yesterday. This is over the last 12 months. So you can see last year at this time was essentially the aquifer levels that we're seeing currently. So we saw a little bit of recharge, but then we have seen that downward water table or the water table trend downward over the last couple of months for sure. But I will say the aquifer seems to kind of be stabilizing to some extent, right at that 100 number, which is what we saw last year. It never got below the 110. So we're hoping that again for the next couple months we start seeing more rainfall and we're able to recharge that water table. That number was taken as of August 9th. Similar to the old San Antonio Road well fields, taken August 9th as well. We have seen that downward trend. Again, just because of the pumpage. This particular well field, we're actually a couple feet higher this year than we were this time last year. So it's a good sign. This well field or this area of the aquifer does not recharge quite as quickly once we do see rainfalls. So you can see that trend, that downward trend will probably continue a little bit further out if we do start seeing any rainfall in the future. This is a new a graph that actually Evan put together. What we were trying to simulate here is our rainfall over what our pumpage rates were. So the bar graphs there at the bottom, that's the rainfall that we've seen this year and last year. The blue bar graphs are last year's rainfall. The yellow bar graphs is this year's rainfall. So you can see the blessed rains that we did get the months of May and June. Unfortunately, nothing in July this year, which correlates to the amount of water that we are pumping. The pumpage rates there, the blue line at the top, that's last year's pumpage, and the red line is this year. So we did, as reported previously, see a lot lower pumpage earlier this year versus last year, but obviously in the month of July, those numbers have come up to more of, I would say, a little above average water pumpage. But the months of July, August, and September, we typically see those are heavier months as far as water pumpage goes. So the one thing that I would note here is that the rainfall last year, you can start seeing some of those blue bar graphs that we actually did receive some rain in August, September. We haven't seen any halfway through the month here so far, so hopefully that changes sooner than later. But we did see those pumpage rates start falling off last year during the fall months because of some of the rainfall that we did receive.
We ended up about 13.5 inches total last year. We're about 12.5 currently this year. And by the way, I did see lightning in the sky last night, so storm's a little bit north of us, just right around the San Saba area.
You sure that's not heat lightning?
Oh, I pulled up my app and checked it out. I'm certain.
So the paving project, we utilize this time of year to complete our paving. They paved the South Adams by the primary school prior to school starting at the end of July. If you drove down Main Street, you saw them paving Apple Street this morning. They're in that area, and I think we have a slide that shows the locations. I'm not sure. Yeah, right there. So the red lines here are the streets that will be paved. That will continue through the month of August and into early September. We'll finish the paving project up.
Okay, back to pool use, and again, this is the same slide that Andrea showed. Our town pool usage is way up again, likely due to the addition of the splash pad. So, great job again. It's been a really smooth operation this summer for sure. Just wanted to throw in the August calendar. The farmers market will be wrapping up a little bit later this week, and of course we have the fair coming up along with the parade toward the end of the month. Okay, now getting into the financial side of things, and I'll get Krista to help. Just generally, the general fund, we're at about 89% total of revenue, 64% of expenses. We're about 88% to date through the entire fiscal year. On the enterprise fund side, 74% of revenue, 61% of expenses. Again, this is what we look like on the sales tax side. For a budgeted revenues of 8.874 million, we're at about 7.6 million. Again, 12% of the fiscal year remaining, 14% of the budget revenues remaining. And stop me if you want to add anything, Krista.
Just wanted to add, we did receive just our most recent number for August, and it was a bit down. So we have been averaging about 6% more over last year. But with this number coming in for August, we're going to drop down a bit. So just more at like 4% over last year.
And if you look at this graph right here toward the right-hand side, you can see that we typically have just a little bit of an increase in August due to families vacationing before back to school time and so forth. So before we start dropping off again in September.
Wanted to make sure we're talking about sales tax, not
Yes,
real
sir.
estate.
That's correct. So again, electric revenues, this looks very similar to the water situation, although our electric revenues have exceeded previous years. Our to-date residential and commercial revenues both and consumption are up. On the water side, you can see right here for an $8.2 million budget, we're 77.4% of the $10.6 million budget at $8.2 million. So the projection currently is 95. We will meet 95% of our revenue projection in the fiscal year, which leaves us about $500,000 short of budget. We do have a couple of projects, 3 projects in particular, that total $1.3 million that we are holding off on. We also have a fund balance. Krista, do you have any information on the fund balance in the water fund?
I don't have that with me. I'm sorry, but I'm just trying to think. Looking at what we've put in for. No, you know what? I do have that. Sorry. So I'm showing a fund balance at the end of 2023's fiscal year at $10 million. And then we're projecting a little bit less in revenue next year at this time at $9.5 million. And then we do have a lot of those projects carrying over that we're delaying right now into next year's budget currently. So we're showing a fund balance at the end of 2024 at about $3.2 million currently.
So we'll have to get through this year. Again, I think we have the more than adequate funding to cover that shortfall. There may be the need for potential rate adjustment depending on what the weather does for the remainder of the year and into next year. It does take time for the aquifer to recharge. So if we don't start getting that rainfall in the fairly early fall, we might be in a little bit of a situation going into the springtime next year. So again, that's something that we watch every day, and we'll keep the council updated on what those projections look like. Property tax collections were 99% of budget. And the information that we received from the appraisal district was just a couple of weeks ago, and this reflects that information, correct? Okay, just a snapshot at property tax rates. We're going to be talking about this a lot on the 21st of this month. But just to give you an idea, since 2015, that rate has generally been going down with the exception of 2016 and 2019. But our valuations have been going up. So when you look at the tax due for the same home, you can see how it fluctuates from that 2015 number of $532 up to $805 for 2022. Any other questions about finances? Police department, another pretty busy month, up just a little bit from June, 1,454 total calls for service. This is what our arrests look like and total charges, again, up just a little bit. I don't know if it's the heat or what that is, maybe visitor volume, up just a little bit, again, going into August. Code enforcement activity. And this just shows the total number of violations, and we have broken out the short-term rental violations just to give you an idea how those compare. Again, this gives you from January to date or through July, comparing the total non-SDR to SDR, all violations. This is a new graphic right here. It'll give you an idea of the top 10 code enforcement violations. You can see at the very top, solid waste violations are by far the most common, followed by grass and weeds. And then finally, watering restrictions. I just got a note from the chief before the meeting. He said that they are getting very strict about watering violations. In the past month, they have 80 cases that they're pursuing currently.
What is solid waste?
Overflowing trash cans, can left out, placed out on wrong day, things like that. Okay, citations versus warnings. Again, you know, the idea is compliance here. Traffic accidents, just shy of 50, mostly minor accidents with about 13 major accidents in town. On the animal control side, total intake of 65, and you can see the breakdown and then the history since January. And then finally, fire EMS. Any questions on police before I move on? So this is information from July. Again, we're down just a little bit in terms of the median number of incidents, although we did have a pretty good spike around the 15th of July at 24 in one day, minimum of 5 on one day. This will give you an idea, again, since January, what that trend line looks like month after month. We're just right about on average, just a little bit above average in terms of incidents per month. This will give you an idea of unit responses by volume. Med 1, 2, 3, and 4 are ambulances or medical calls. You hear Lynn say all the time, make up about 85% of our total calls. So this graph represents that. And we showed this slide during the city-county meeting. This is for a different period of time, but again, you can see that Saturday weekend volume does drive up the number of incidents on the weekends, and you can see generally in the afternoon time period, 4, 5 o'clock is the busiest time. And this is a breakdown for mutual aid received and given. On the left-hand side, you can see the category aid received and the aid given. You hear Chief also talk about how 99% of the time we respond when Harper Volunteer Fire Department is called out. This reflects at 99%. So the aid given, 18 incidents, aid received by Harper on 1 incident. We also talk about how busy Stonewall is and how they respond to a lot of incidents out 290 East. So again, the aid received from Stonewall is just the flip of that 16 incidents versus 1 that we have provided aid to. Brush fires, and I'm going to have to knock on wood a little bit here. We have dodged a few bullets, certainly over the last week or so, but you can see a slight uptick that will likely continue over the next couple of months until we do start to get a little bit more rainfall.
Clinton, are the controlled burns to prevent brush fires?
Might have Lynn answer that question.
Today would not be a good day.
The reason I'm asking is because we've seen an uptick this last month or so in controlled burns.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. The control burns are usually those that we respond to when someone may be burning for whatever reason. Obviously, we're in a burn ban at this time, and so they're not even allowed. But we do occasionally have those who may try to burn. So there's really not to control anything. It's more people trying to get rid of the brush and wood that has built up over the years.
Okay.
But currently there shouldn't be any at all. But we occasionally get a call that someone's burning, and then we have to go investigate it.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Chief. Okay, and again, incident locations by type, just a breakdown of fire versus EMS. And incident locations by mutual aid. Again, the lighter color, generally west is aid given, generally Harper, again, aid received from Stonewall to the east. And a heat map showing the concentration of incidents, mainly in Fredericksburg. Any questions about fire EMS? Okay, health department, just quickly, 2 new retail health permits. These are for fixed establishments. 2 new mobile health units, or mobile health units, permits, I'm sorry. This is something that we're seeing more and more of. 8 temporary, 51 routine inspections performed. Shows you a little bit of the activity coming up. 29 facilities with plan reviews completed but not yet finished, and then 28 being considered or planned. On to city department openings. When I started this report a couple of months ago, we had 18 open positions. This represents 16 open positions. The most recent that we've added in development services, as we just recently posted, the senior planner, historic preservation officer position. We do still have 4 police officer positions open, along with animal control supervisor and animal control officer. And these are the recently filled positions: city accountant, parks crew worker, water department crew workers, 2 of those, and a police cadet. And that concludes my presentations. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you. Good report. All right, good report. Under renewable energy, I don't think we have anyone speaking on that particular item.
Correct. I requested this be on the agenda because I have a request from a citizen who wanted to make a presentation. He could not be here today, so we'll bump that.
Okay. We'll move on to short-term rentals. Anna?
All right, IT, can you switch over to my tablet, please? And Jan, if you want to come up, just want to kind of give everybody an update since we are doing the STR amendments, but to show you some of the work that staff's been doing. And I've got to brag on Jan. Of course, Jan's been here for several months now just for STR. She's our STR specialist, and this is a spreadsheet that she shares with Janelle. She and Janelle and Darren. Of course, Jan and Darren are full-time STR employees, and then Janelle in finance does a lot of the kind of the back end data management, and then Shelby still assists with the complicated STRs, and then the STRs that go through the public hearing process. Of course, I touch those as well. So want to give you an update on some numbers. Jan is now processing applications through August, so she's current.
August 23.
She's current, yes, August 2023. So that backlog has, really gone away. There's still some, complicated permits that aren't easy to issue and require more attention. So she's done a great job getting us caught up. And we've got a lot of data now. If you look at the number of tabs on this, there's lots of things we can show you, including now we can look at a street and tell you how many permits are by street, by zoning district, how many per zoning district. And you'll see this number of non-conforming, right? Because when we went to the 2022 ordinance, essentially everything was now categorized as non-conforming. So as new applications are renewed or existing applications are renewed, Jan's now categorizing them, okay, so it's non-conforming, but it's actually an accessory dwelling unit because we couldn't track that before. So it's not 100% accurate, but as they renew, they become more accurate. So a lot of, Jan, is there any particular information you want to share? Is any stats that stand out to you?
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. Not particularly. I just think it's nice that we're being able to break them down. And so we'll be able to filter with any kind of request that you come in with. We can filter it and give you accurate, probably within the year, because obviously all those new permits, all those renewing permits are going to get reclassified. They'll still have their non-conforming status, but they'll be identified. But it's just really, really cool to have all this information. And Janelle is, she is the Excel guru. So I give her all kudos. She's actually color coded my data field. You'll see down there, STR data. That's all color coded for me now. So it's not just this big white blank. Well, that one's pretty white. So that's a good one because that means they're active. And if you come down, you'll see there's different colors. The blue means they're pending. Yellow is denied. And so, you know, green is out in the ETJ. So it's very easy on a quick glance to see what that property is without actually, you know, going to the actual individual. And then this one is really cool. She's taken every single street in our city and broken it down to see how many STRs actually exist on each street, which I find fascinating. And there are several that have high numbers because they're very popular, obviously. But it's very interesting. So,
Jen, a couple questions. One is, are permit notifications going out in advance? One of the complaints was that they were expiring and the owner didn't know that. So are we proactively saying 30, 60 days in advance, hey, make sure you...
Not as yet. The new system that we're looking at will have, we're hoping, that kind of feature. Okay. But currently, no, Granicus is not doing that at all. And I've been, you know, renewing. So when I come across one, I will certainly send somebody a note, but not on a big blanketed situation. But as you will see, we have 180 that are not permitted, which is significantly.
That was my next question.
Yes, sir.
I know that we have, I won't go into addresses here, but I know we have facilities operating that are not permitted, and they know they're not permitted. So we're tracking all the good, responsible players here. Are we tracking those folks that are operating without a permit?
Well, all these that we have here that are listed as not permitted are ones that were originally at some time permitted. So we know about them. There are several out there that we haven't yet identified that will be my next task. And that one is, you know, it's expansive in the sense that you have to do your due diligence and you have to get code involved and all sorts of things. So that hasn't been a priority at the moment, but we are, as we come upon them, we are putting them in the system. But that not permitted number are people that had permits at one time.
Do we know how many are operating without permits? What the number is?
No, sir. Not at this time.
Is that because of Grannis? I hate to say that word again.
It's just really hard to find them if they're not advertising. In certain ways, it's really hard to identify those properties. The mayor and I were having a conversation about City of Austin, what they have 16,000 SDRs and there's 12,000 operating without a permit or something like that. So it's hard to catch them.
But they can be caught. There is, because they have to be somewhere to advertise.
If we knew they were operating without a permit, we would address that situation. We're doing that.
We are doing that.
Yeah,
we do have several that are going through the process. So when we are notified of that, if a citizen tells us, or if we're doing our own due diligence on realtor.com and see one that's for sale, it's not a priority in that she's processing permits, but as one comes up, she absolutely deals with it and then sends it through code enforcement. And I will say it all circles back to the court of record as well. So this staff is also very interested in the court of record being created. It will help our process as well and give us more tools for the enforcement.
Thank you. I was going to mention that with my conversation with the judge, that updating and improving our enforcement. Because few highly publicized cases of grabbing people who are operating without a permit and they have to pay $2,000 a day or whatever until they get straight. We'll solve that problem pretty fast, I think.
So, observation, having come from the STR task force under the mayor's oversight, a tremendous amount of work. I mean, I can see just an amazing amount of hours that went into this. So thank you for everything you've done. Question for staff is, I understand that the like local IT shop that was going to write some code here that may not be a part of the forecast any longer. So where are we relative to Granicus and next steps? RFP, RFQ?
So we are currently working with MyGov now on a suite of permitting modules, one for the building department, and we're actually closer to going live with the one for the STR permitting. And that it does have a lot of the capabilities that we were looking for. And we don't have a go live date yet, but we've seen a demo that was pretty close. The only thing that was lacking is the payment processing. We were actually switching credit card vendors, so there was a few missing or pieces that we're putting together. So it looks like the STR permitting module will go live before the building permit module, even though we've been working on the building one longer. So that will replace Granicus for the data entry. Right now, we are still currently using Granicus for Jan to receive applications and payment. But the content is actually, this is what you see. What you see is this is how she actually issues the permits. So she takes the information from Granicus and then imports it here. Right. So this is our Bible. I feel nervous just having it turned on. Not enabled editing, but we are moving forward with MyGov now.
So one of the things that we found during the task force was that marketing is a wonderful thing, and on PowerPoints you can make everything appear to be real. And it became very apparent very quickly that Granicus did not have the capabilities post the April 2022 award. So do we have a higher degree of confidence with MyGov? We have actual cities that have been implemented already. We have some reporting structure that says, yes, we're going to be more successful with this iteration.
We've seen, they created it for us custom based off other modules that they already have for licensing, because this really acts more like a license than, say, a building permit, since it is something that does renew. And so they had someone on staff who pretty much created it custom for us. And we had, like I said, we've seen it, we've gone through the module, the virtual application. It's set up differently for a new permit versus a renewing permit. So it's very customized to our needs. And we're of course, like the project person, got married and bought a house and has been out for 2 weeks. So just when we think we're at the finish line and going to go live, and she has a life. So we're kind of dealing with those technical issues on their side, but we feel like we're confident this is going to get us there, something that's very viable and usable. I'll continue on just updates of what we've been doing. We've also created with a third party. So as Lee just showed you, we use Civic Plus for our web page, right? So this is our current STR web page. Lots of information here. Send you to Granicus for the link there. But we've created this with a third party, and this is what we want to be our primary STR page. It's pretty user-friendly, so you can kind of shows you step by step. And the thing that it has, everybody's been wanting, is the map. Come on.
You can't establish all those dots.
Yeah, there's so many dots, it's overloading.
Yeah.
Okay. Jan, give me an address.
Sorry, 409 East College. I just did a transfer on that one, so.
Okay, so 409 East College, we pull it up and we can see the owner, we can see the emergency contact number, the permit number, address that is an STR nonconforming, and the occupancy.
Thank you, y'all. I'm so long. Thank you. Is this live?
Yes, we're gonna put this on our webpage, link it to it, but yes, it's out there. Now I will say it's a little cumbersome on this, like you have to clear it out and you can zoom in, but once you touch a parcel, then you have to clear it out. You can't just, so, but all the orange yellow dots are STR, are current STRs. So it does also pull up hotels. So this is, I guess, anything with a hot, it's also in the ETJ. So it's pulling all of our data. But there you go.
All owner occupied and non-owner occupied, correct?
All permits, yes.
So if somebody's living there, but they have an ADU in the backyard, it still presents.
Yes. Yes. So that's the new webpage. Okay, we can go through it too as well. So this would be the landing page and where someone would look to see if there is an STR, and then if they wanted to apply, we've got the direct link to our zoning map. And then right now, this is a link to Granicus on how to apply. Of course, this will be updated once we go to MyGov Now. How to get an inspection and approval. How to sign up to pay hot. And then other useful information such as the CVB and chamber, other resources. So this is the new STR page. It'll link directly from our existing page because this is somewhat static and that we will have to update. The locator map will have to update about once a month. We'll send up-to-date information. It's not talking directly to our spreadsheet, but we'll update it. We'll plan on doing it once a month. So as you can see here, information accurate as of August 1st. There's something else or somewhere else. So to our page. So this is a third party, so I can't go in and manipulate it. If this says something wrong here, I would have to send in a work order to our third party. But on the Civic Plus side, we can change this at any time and we'll be doing so for a couple of reasons. One, to link to that map, and then also we'll be putting up our new amendments. So we just got the draft ordinance last night from our legal counsel. So that'll be going out to you, council, when I get out of here. P&Z, Zoning Board of Adjustment. Zoning Board of Adjustment is going to be a very busy board going forward if you adopt the ordinance as proposed, creating the new special exception. So we'll send that out, make it available because the public hearing letters have gone out. They should be hitting mailboxes any day now. And those have set the 2 public hearings. So P&Z will meet on in September, the first week of September on Thursday. They did call a special meeting for that. And then your public hearing will be in October 3rd, for the public hearing to review the amendments for the STR. Also, Jan has created a newsletter that will go out kind of announcing all of this. So kind of a big splash on STR news, the new website, the new draft ordinance. And then this will just be a quarterly communication tool that we'll use to stay in touch with STR operators. So while we've been quiet, we've been busy. A lot of things going on behind the scenes. So we've got a lot of data, ordinance amendments, webpage, newsletter, and happy to answer any questions.
I just want to point out the contrast between this discussion and the people that are in these seats right now. And was it maybe 18 months ago? I don't know, whenever prior council decided to switch from Avenue to Granicus, the discussion that was had was to the point of, yeah, and it's half the price. Great. Okay, let's approve without any more detail. So I'm sorry for all the trouble that has caused for staff in going through it, but I think we're in a much better position than we were to have this kind of data. So thank you for all your work on this.
Thank you.
And thanks for the map.
Can I add one thing? I wanted to share with you a moment I had a couple of weeks ago. I've been processing, renewals from November, October, some back further than that. And the other day, I actually processed a permit that hadn't yet expired. And I was so excited. I had to go and tell everybody on my team. But I just wanted to share that with you. It was a moment of joy. And I'm just so grateful that we're in the place that we are now. So thank you guys. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Jan. Thank you, Hannah. Anything else on that?
That concludes my update, Mayor.
All right. Let's go to item 10, future agenda.
Okay, so for September 15th, or September 5th, rather, we have a very short agenda. We have two items requested by the mayor, receive presentation on city council's duties and responsibilities regarding development and construction. And then continued discussion regarding affordable housing. And we may have a few more items come up on the list. Anna, do you have anything that you know will be on the September 5th agenda?
No, it'd be the second meeting in September for upcoming P&Z items to be determined.
Okay, that's all we have for now, Mayor. Okay. Oh, and I also wanted to mention for everybody's benefit that again is here listening in that the meeting, the special budget meeting that we originally had scheduled for tomorrow has been rescheduled for Thursday at 6 o'clock p.m. at the Cardinal Room. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Clinton and staff. We're now ready to go into executive session. A couple of items. One is municipal court employees, and secondly is a legal update. An update on a legal issue.
I move we go into executive session.
Second. Motion and second to go into executive session. All in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. A motion second to go back into regular from executive session. We don't have any business items to transact because of that.
Aye.
There's discussion only. Oh, sorry. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Sorry. We don't have any business items, number 12, to reflect our executive session. Anything further, council, before we call it a day? All right. Thank you all. We are adjourned.